With the recent wave of terror attacks in the United States and Europe, radical Islam is on everybody's minds. Social media is buzzing as people from around the world are speaking out against growing Islamophobia, despite the fact that ISIS continues to claim responsibility for terror attacks from Belgium to Orlando. Dr. Mordechai Kedar is here in the studio with us to talk about the connection between Islam and the recent terror. Thanks for coming in.
Pleasure.
So, the terrorist in this Orlando massacre was influenced by ISIS, as far as we know. How is ISIS ideology entering and growing in the United States?
No, I would divide it. He was inspired by the methods and the ways how ISIS or Islamic State treats its opponents. But the ideology which brings a man to act against the LGBT community is well embedded in the core teachings of Islam. Because according to Islam, a family is only between men and a woman. And any connection, especially sexual connection between males and females, transgenders, and all these kinds of things of the LGBT community, this is something which is totally unacceptable by the core teachings of Islam. It's not ISIS. So the hatred vis-a-vis this phenomenon of LGBT is one thing, but the method which he got is the Islamic State.
So let's talk about this, issue of hate crime versus terror attack. Right now we're seeing a lot of American officials who have initially come out and said that this is it's a hate crime to the LGBTQ community, rather than referring to the event as a terror attack. Why is that?
Because Americans try to look at the world from under the sand after they stuck their heads in order not to see the motivation of those terrorists in San Bernardino, in the Times Square, Fort Hood, a Marathon of Boston. All these places, all these things were motivated not by the hatred to America per se, but because those people were Muslims who hate America because America is viewed as infidel country, wine drinkers and swine eaters, and this is why they deserve such an end which they will bring to America, only to spread Islam. And actually, we see it already in America for years. A few years ago, I was driving in I-95, in Interstate 95, the biggest highway in the East Coast, between Boca Raton and Hollywood, Florida. And there were two giant billboards near the road. On one side it says Muhammad, Prophet of Mercy, and on the other side, what do Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad have in common? Islam. And this is freedom of speech. Means they come in some stealthy way to America to spread mercy to mankind on one side, and to spread Islam as the religion of Moses and Jesus as well. And freedom of speech is accepting them very well. Why not? Everyone can sell his merchandise. But, and this is, I would say, the majority, those who come to change America in a good way or in a peaceful way to Islamic State. And actually, the American authorities caught already in the 90s a memorandum, the explanatory memorandum of the Muslim Brotherhood, which was authored in May 1991, which explains all the methods and the ways which the Muslim Brotherhood organization is planning in order to take America over.
So I want to talk to you about Islamophobia also as an issue right now that's coming up. There are a lot of people on social media who are saying that the Orlando massacre is going to lead to greater Islamophobia within the United States and the world, and that terror is actually not a Muslim issue. Is that fair to say? What do you think about that?
First of all, I don't believe that there is some kind of a term named Islamophobia. Phobia is irrational fear from something. When it comes to Islamic extremists who spread terror, this is not a phobia. This is a real fear against or from real threat. Phobia is irrational fear from something which doesn't exist. But when it comes to radical Muslims who take the rifle and kill people or bomb cars in the Times Square, this is not phobia. This is a real fear. So if there is a fear against Islam, it is based on facts, based on history. What was the September 11? Okay, so this is why I don't agree with the Islamophobia, because Islamophobia actually says, hey, you are afraid of Muslims, it's unreal. There is no reason, no basis. It's baseless.
Now, speaking about, a peaceful Muslim community, people who are not engaged in radical Islam, what is the right way to combat these acts of terror without necessarily hurting that community? For
this, you need intelligence. You need to listen to what they say and to look at what they write. Unfortunately, they are, if one of them is a terrorist, so would you tolerate 100 who are not terrorists? You have to look very carefully and maybe to rephrase the rules of human rights and political freedoms and everything, because even if 1% of them is a problem, you have to be very careful. If somebody gives you a whole bag of M&Ms and tells you that only one of them, only one of 200 M&Ms is poisoned, how many will you eat out of this box or bag of M&Ms? This is the same thing. Even if 1% of them is a problem, you have to start working, with intelligence. I'm not saying to put them all in jail, not at all. Yet you have to start working and maybe to start questioning all kinds of ideas like political correctness, and which, in my view, paralyzes much of the discourse and action against those terrorists.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
And we hope to have you back soon, Doctor.
Inshallah.